I've been living in the Bay Area for roughly 24 years, 23 maybe. When I moved here, I was shocked at home prices. I think everyone from the East Coast probably says the same thing. On the East Coast, we think there's a lot of earthquakes that are going to knock over buildings. I've honestly only felt two very, very small earthquakes in 23 years. Knock on wood. One of them I had to go, was that what? So there's this perception that is wrong, but the real estate, that perception is spot on. You're shocked by it when you see it. I remember Palo Alto having the $1 million homes as a standard. It's like, whoa. Earlier this week, there was a story out that $1 million homes are now typical in 500 US cities, which is a new record. I would not have thought 500 US cities have a typical home costing $1 million. California has 210 cities where the typical home is $1 million. That's 12 more than a year ago. It just shows you that it's an asset that is expensive. And one of the things you need to do is learn how to fund it with a mortgage. Let's bring on Scott Thompson, also known as Mr. Mortgage Man. He's on the website, mrmortgageman.com. It's mrmortgageman.com. Scott, you grew up in the Bay Area. I haven't. I've only spent half my life here, roughly. What's it like seeing these real estate numbers?
Well, I've seen it since I was a kid, and like those numbers just really didn't surprise me. I mean, I'm in the mortgage business now, so I see it every day. But like I said, give me a great example. My dad, who also still lives here in California, up in Santa Rosa, he bought his house in 1980 for $100,000, and now it's worth around $1.1 million. Yes, amazing.
That's something. That's like, I never knew what my father was paying for housing because he was in the military and we were given housing. But we lived well in homes that we probably wouldn't be able to afford based on salary. But anyway, that's totally digressing. One of the things that's interesting inside all the real estate data right now is kind of the lock-in effect. Your father has stayed in that same house for many, 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 many years, riding it from 100,000 to 1.1 million in value. That'll be a nice asset to pass on later in life. Let's talk about that lock-in effect where people think twice about listing their homes because they have low interest rates right now. How are you seeing that play out?
I think it makes sense. The homeowners that have a low mortgage interest rate, and let's just say between 3 and 4%, in a lot of cases are just choosing not to list their homes for sale. They don't want to give up that current low interest rate.
I totally understand that. I think there was a story out of the LA Times today that I'm kind of breaking script on that talked about how many homes are increasing in value in Southern California based on all cash offers, because kind of the mortgage world kind of went wonky in the last 18 months as interest rates moved so high so fast. And the typical 30-year mortgage went from 3% to 6, 7, almost as high as 8% before cooling back down. So the average home in Southern California was up 9% from a year ago level. And it's bananas, so says one lender, because people aren't putting 20% down. They're buying in all cash offers more often than not. Scott, let's go back to you now. If someone has $1 million in a home, that's a big asset. Sometimes life happens and your kids go to college and you didn't save enough. Sometimes life happens and there's a health scare or a roof collapses and you need money and you look at that house as a piggy bank. What are your thoughts on refining or using a HELOC? A HELOC being a home equity line of credit.
Well, let's start. So HELOC, really it'll allow you to borrow up to 80 to 90% of your home equity. And that credit is secured by the equity you have in your home. So it's kind of like a credit card. You can withdraw funds as needed.
So the home equity line of credit, it's secured by the equity in the house. You can borrow up to 80 to 90%. Home equity line of credit. I had a home equity line of credit a few years ago and I had it at a super low rate. And when I sold my home and moved, they made me pay it back all at once. And I was like bummed because I wanted to keep that super low rate. Let's talk about cash out refinances. How do those work?
So how a cash out refi differs is you're going to receive essentially when you do that refinance, you get a new loan. And that loan is the difference between of the amount you want to take out. So if you want to take out 100,000 and you had a 700,000 balance, now your new loan's 800,000. There's some advantages. So you have a fixed rate, which stays consistent over time, and usually have lower interest rates than HELOCs.
So accessing the piggy bank of your home, because there's typical homes in California, many cities now are over $1 million, which is just ponderous to think about. There's the HELOC, the home equity line of credit. That's something I've used. I've never done a refi. To me, that's so funny. I have done refis. I haven't done it to take cash out though. I've done it to lower my payment. Do you see where my psychology just failed on me live on air, Scott?
It didn't fail you. It just, that's how you choose to, use the equity of your house. You wanted a lower rate. That's what was important.
And with that lower rate, I used the extra savings or what I wasn't paying, and I put it in the stock market for my retirement. So what are some of the decision factors, Scott?
So, okay, a couple things to consider. If you prefer stability, then I would recommend going for a cash out refinance.
Okay.
If you're comfortable with adjustable rates, a HELOC may offer more equity access. A couple other things to think about. So interest rates, cash out refinances generally have a lower interest rate. Cost to consider if you do a refinance. So you have the closing costs to redo the loan, but you get the convenience of a lump sum payment versus a HELOC where it's a credit line as needed.
Sounds good, Scott. If people want to talk to you, they can find you online at mrmortgageman.com. It's MR Mortgage, MORTGAGE, man, MAN.com. It's mrmortgageman.com. Scott can talk to you about if you, for instance, need to have a big credit card payment wiped out, or if you have struggles paying for your kids' college. For me, it's my kids' soccer programs, but it's not a struggle. But things aren't cheap, just to say the least. Thanks very much, Scott. People can find you at mrmortgageman.com. Scott just helped us with home equity lines of credit versus cash out refis. It is interesting that I made a psychological mistake in my head and thinking I didn't do a refi because I've never pulled money out. I've just used refis to lower my payment. One thing to note is that both loans create unique challenges. So you really got to find out which one works for you. And a home equity line of credit, because it has an adjustable rate. If you were to ask me, I'm not a betting man, but if I were a betting man, I would imagine the adjustable rates go lower, just a skosh in the next year as interest rates go lower. So maybe your HELOC would be a little bit cheaper, so to speak. But you got to make the decisions based on you. And Scott is somebody who can run the numbers for you. You can find him at mrmortgageman.com. On to my world, the world of investments. Spotify employees. That's been a stock that's done really well. It plays into my total addressable market of 100 million or more users. I like that. I like a subscription-based tech company who can raise rates, raise prices. I like that a lot. $1 or $2 here goes the bottom line. You've seen Netflix do it really, really well. Back in the day, AOL did it really, really well. America Online, which is funny to think about. But you've seen the subscription model work. So Spotify employees are questioning lavish spending on events when the company lays off thousands of employees. It is the entertainment business. It is the music business. And that's kind of comes with the territory. They had a party where Sam Smith took the stage and sang his popular hit Unholy. It was part of a 3,500 capacity event held in a former IKEA store, which means it was big. And they brought Charlie XCX, Chase and Status as drinks flowed from the bar. And then 4 days later, 1,500 jobs were cut. Now, that happens. And for people like me, it's a good thing. But for people like you, when I go, yeah, a company just had a concert for 3,500 people who are working with the company, not for the employees, but for advertisers. And it seemed a little bit how shall we say, over the top lavish. And then a couple days later, they cut 1,500 jobs. I don't see those as related. I know you do. But this morning, Amazon CEO Jassy came out and said that he's going to continue to trim jobs and focus on profitability. And Wall Street likes that. It's a horrible, not so good feeling truth that the highest cost of doing business is labor. And when you hear about job cuts, you and I hate it because they're our neighbors and our friends. But Wall Street loves it because it's a bottom line kind of business. Amazon's trading slightly higher today. I don't think that news affected it a lot. They've been talking about trimming costs for the better part of over a year now. Who did it really well? Meta. And Mark Zuckerberg went from one of the worst CEOs because of his infatuation with the metaverse and throwing billions and billions and billions of dollars into a big hole sinkhole of money to one of the best CEOs when he said, 2023 was going to be the year of efficiency.
30.
That stock more than tripled because of the year of efficiency. Anyhow and anyway, and efficiency means laying off people just between you and me and shutting down projects that are too expensive. You can find me online at robblackshow.com. It's robblackshow.com. If you need a mortgage or a refi or a HELOC, you can learn more by going to mrmortgageman.com. That's mrmortgageman.com.